It's time to discuss the last team in the Atlantic Division, the red-headed stepchild of the Eastern Conference, a talented team that I really enjoy watching. How's it going, guys? It's Chris, and today I'm discussing the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors won 50 games for the second season in a row, going 51-31, which is the third best record in the East and the second best in the Atlantic Division. But this offseason kicked off with a great deal of uncertainty. When it comes to a disastrous salary cap situation, there are very few teams in the NBA that are worse off than the Raptors. And that's not always a bad thing. The Cavs are in a cap hole, and so are the Warriors. The difference is, the Warriors and Cavs are in title contention. And I'm not taking shots at the Raptors, and I mean that sincerely. DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry are entertaining players, but their team is in no way equipped to challenge the Cavs, much less the Warriors. This puts them in a position that many teams in the NBA are in, like the Wizards and the Grizzlies. They are playoff teams that can make it to the second, maybe third round of the playoffs, but realistically are not in title contention. That is a problem that I'm not prepared to solve. The question becomes, is paying the luxury tax worth a second round playoff exit every year? And I'm not a component of blowing up a roster to try and rebuild when you have a good thing going, because blowing up a roster is difficult and doing it incorrectly can land your franchise in hell for years. Since I can't answer that question for the Raptors, let's move on to the Raptors offseason. As usual, let's talk about the draft first. They had one pick in the 2017 draft, and they selected OG Anunoby from the University of Indiana with the 23rd pick. Anunoby is a player that some considered a lottery pick, but sadly he injured his ACL, and the reports about how serious the injury was were mixed, so his draft stock fell. He is a high-risk, high-reward player that has been compared to Kawhi Leonard because of his ability to defend. But he has the same downsides that Kawhi had coming out of college too, mainly his offense, which can be considered questionable at best, but his 7'2" wingspan allows him to be a force on defense, so hopefully he can return and be healthy so we can find out if he's just a great defender or if he can be a great two-way player like Kawhi. So let's talk about all the moves the Raptors made during free agency. During the bulk of free agency, the Raptors couldn't do much more than attempt to keep their team together as best they could and dump salary. They made two trades during this offseason. In one, they traded DeMar Carroll to the Nets for nothing. They needed to shed the $30 million over the next 2 years they would have owed Carroll. And then they traded Corey Joseph to the Pacers, who they would have owed $14 million over the next 2 years. They got nothing out of these trades because they couldn't afford to take on any additional salaries, so they could pay all their stars on their team. By dumping those salaries and not taking on any additional ones, they were able to re-sign Serge Ibaka to a 3-year, $65 million contract, Kyle Lowry to a 3-year, $100 million contract, and CJ Miles to a 3-year, $25 million contract. And those are key re-signings that will help keep the Raptors contending in the weakest Eastern Conference I've seen for a while. But they did not re-sign all their free agents. They lost Patrick Patterson, who signed a 3-year, $16 million contract with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And while his stats don't jump off the page, he was an important piece in Toronto who just helped the team win. Toronto outscored teams by almost 11 points per 100 possessions last year when Patterson was in, and by less than 1 point per 100 possessions with him on the bench. Patterson signed with the Thunder and should be fairly successful with Paul George and Russell Westbrook. They also lost PJ Tucker to the Rockets, where he signed a 4-year, $31 million contract. Tucker is a dominant defensive wing, and losing him hurts the team's depth. And that pretty much sums up the Raptors offseason, losing depth. The East got much worse this offseason, so even losing Patterson and Tucker shouldn't really affect their placement in the East. While they did get worse, the East got so bad the Nets could make a run at the playoffs this year. I'm doing a free agency and offseason review for all 30 teams, all 6 divisions, the East and the West. This is the last team in the Atlantic Division, so now I'm going to do a video about the Atlantic Division and try to predict the winner of the division and all the teams' records. So subscribe if you want that. Anyway, guys, what did you think of the Raptors offseason? I'd love to know. Put your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at UncontestedHQ. See you guys.